Hello, and welcome to Paperback Radio. Have you ever felt
someone was in your corner?
Have you ever
believed
that a person might do anything for you?
And did you know as an absolute certainty
the danger that loyalty possesses?
Here today,
we bring you another tale
by Lane McLeod Jackson.
Porcelain
Dreams.
Do come in for a cup of tea. This is Best Society's favourite form of invitation. It is used on nearly every occasion, whether there is to be music or a distinguished visitor, or whenever a hostess has merely an inclination to see her friends. She writes on her personal visiting card, "Do come in Friday for a cup of tea and hear Elwyn play, or Farish sing, or to meet Senator West, or Lady X, or even more informally, I have not seen you for so long." For so long. Those words of the late, great Emily Post, and her first blue book of etiquette. More formally, etiquette in society, in business, in politics, and at home. As I have been positioned here at tea time for an uncourteously extended duration, it does my heart some good to know at least tea time is the best of society's favourite form. A lady does not reveal her age, but it can be said without exaggeration that lifetimes have passed with me in various configurations around this very table. Not by choice, you understand. I, like many young ladies, was far more energetic in my youth, taken off the shelf, dressed in the latest fashions, paraded, shown off, fought over. Vicious, dare I say bloody fights between chargers over whom would embrace my petite figure, clutching me to their chest. It was frightening, of course. I might fall to pieces, but it accomplishes wonders for a healthy sense of vanity, does it not? Occasionally, when I feel trapped, useless and unseen, and I think back to those brawls and the inevitable victor. She was also named Clara. Well, she named me after her. I was hers ever after, as I've always been. A lean, skinny girl, all elbows and buck teeth. I'm not trying to be cruel. It's just the truth. She once broke Ruth's nose for molesting me. Ruth was a glorified tradesman daughter who had her dirt-caked, grubby little hands on my newest smock, and it was wrong of Clara to do that. Undignified. But I did appreciate her rescue. This is the hidden truth of Emily Post. Etiquette, the law. We all want them enforced, until we don't. We want a world of gentlemen, until we don't. We want mercy, due process, Christian charity, justice, until we don't. Clara, such a bright child, devoured her books. Conjugation, recitation, turning the pages so quickly she'd have to ignore the small cuts shaping her fingers. She'd turn to me, her cheeks flushed red with effort, and say, "Clara, comment, allez-vous? Je vas bien? Tu es bella, Clara. Tu es mon meilleur ami, Clara. Tu es mon meilleur ami, Clara." I never responded in the moment, of course. A lady knows when to be silent. She was too busy studying. But most occasionally, as she slept, I nestled cheek to cheek with her. Well, I might mutter, "Clara, je t'aime comme tu es mon monde. Je suis ton ange. Votre présence me remplit d'une telle passion que je ne peux me comparer qu'à une tempête sans fin qui couvrit les globes. Je suis ta poupée, ton jouet, le gars, et à toi, pour toujours." Some things are easier said in French. Mistress, Clara's mother, did not find these fits of enthusiasm particularly impressive. No, Clara, redo these here. Your penmanship has a particularly unrefined downward slope at the end of sentences. No, Clara, we have guests. Overt displays of affection indicate a loose character. No, Clara, I warned you about interrupting me when I'm resting in the parlor. Go to your reflection room. A vicious misnomer. The reflection room was a closet. No mirror hung, no seat comforted, no bed relieved. Empty of the air necessary to even pray in contrition. It worked to suffocate the moment the door closed. This was no corrective, just Mistress's noble attempt to emulate hell. She was a modern Jezebel in every sense. Well, actually, I suppose she'd be a bit old-fashioned now. The first time Clara was thrown inside the reflection room, I was not with her. I had been left against the pillow during the lesson, forced to watch through the half-opened bedroom door. Mistress ascended the staircase, pulling little Clara by the hair. She was 7, and I don't know what she did at the time to precipitate her punishment. I do know that I could hear her, feel her, weeping and screaming, until the door shut and there was nothing but silence. In some ways, that's when I first woke, aware of more than just Clara's all-encompassing love. I felt her taken from me. It is not possible that days went by before Mistress released the door, but the mind defies time for the imprisoned, and we both had ourselves. Me, laid out on the bed, her, in black solitude. When Mistress opened the chamber, Clara fell to the ground. She'd been pressed up against the door, and I saw the expression on her face. It wasn't fear or anger or horror. It was embarrassment that contorted her features to the exclusion of all else. And a moment later I could see why. Her lovely dress, whose duplicate I wore, was stained from... well, understandable, under the circumstances. But Mistress felt that it was still her child's responsibility to scrub the reflection room until the smell dissipated. Mistress in her wisdom never assigned Clara a reflection for that duration again. In time, Clara would simply be told. She'd nod, excuse herself, and go to the reflection room quietly. It truly was best this way. She'd be able to take me into the cage. We could hold each other in the darkness. That's when I found my voice. We two Claras could finally speak. Oh, the ravenous sensation of speech after a lifetime of silence, each syllable containing worlds of power. There was nothing off the table as we clung lips together in the dark. The scandalous, the rebellious, horrifying thoughts we put to words. At first we dared only utter them in our secret place. In time, Clara, when she had some particularly devilish notion, would misbehave in order to be sent to hell. We did not overplay our hand, of course. That would be foolish. Mistress was cunning and her mind capable of far greater and varied punishments. She had to believe this place was our place of terror. But as time grew on, and Clara's buck teeth became framed with a body that inspired sinful obedience, we grew bolder. It unnerved Mistress. She'd see us head thrown back and stop to watch her. Watch the mortality steep and stain her face. The claws under her eyelids spread like an infection. Now, I don't want you to think that my Clara was not socialized. Heavens no. From her earliest years, Mistress had a number of fine dignitaries, close friends, and a constant friendship of Dr. Holmesworth over for tea, society's favorite form of invitation. Clara and I never trusted Dr. Holmesworth, and used courtesy as our shield when he'd pick us up, hold us close to his sharp, stale breath and say, "Listen, love, call me Uncle Homie. That's nice, isn't it? You don't get a father, but here's an uncle." An uncle's much better, isn't it? Someone to play with. No, Doctor, Clara whispered at my urging. That would be disrespectful to your station. Please, Doctor, can you put me down? I'm so frightened of heights. He'd squeeze under her arm, but with no call for refusal and too cowardly for a greater sin, he'd let her go. It was only the combination of self-delusion and terror that protected Clara from his desires. Mistress had some power over the man, and he never dared directly challenge her. Along with his festering presence, a continuous dramatis personae of gentlemen callers would visit, each hoping the still beautiful widow would relent and take another sir to the altar. Or failing that, they came to see what kind of woman the young daughter might become. Mistress knew danger lurked. Her gentlemen callers would find excuses to listen to Clara play the piano, or delight in her recitation of La Parure by Monsieur Massepin. Here I became the tutor and conspirator both. A doll knows what outward people wish to see, how outward genteel appearances can be divorced utterly from the interior fury that drives us. I counseled Clara, be nothing if not innocent. Catch their eyes, flash a smile, but look away. You must seem too pure to understand your own mind. Mistress knew, but could not punish us while the audience came in ever greater numbers. The good Dr. Holmesworth, despite his loyalty, was our most useful tool. I have no doubt this obese, simple-minded excuse for a healer imagined his intentions noble, that his prolonged gaze upon my Clara's blossoming femininity was the effect of sympathy and kindness, as opposed to lecherous self-indulgence. But Clara never demonstrated the slightest indication of her revulsion. Even I couldn't see it. When she'd giggle at some jest and brush his arm slightly at the pianoforte, I felt something akin to jealousy. It was only in our dark when she'd describe how it would feel to bury the knife in his jugular, to let the blood squirt so it covered her white dress and heated her face. Oh, Clara, he'd be so confused. He'd look up, stupid, betrayed grimace. Why, Clara? Don't you love? I wouldn't let him finish. Clara, it's an ugly thing, but I'd open the wound in his neck with my knife at first, and then use my fingers, rend it wide, and watch his entire life pour out. Oh, she'd say the most outrageous things at times. Now Mistress needn't have worried about us whispering secrets to the men who'd arrived, or choosing the most pleasing and marrying to flee. We decided long ago that escape was not the proper avenue. Naturally, the mistress didn't know that, and assumed we'd be stolen away by some well-off widower, a fate she could not tolerate, even as she verbally encouraged it. We observed her desperate loneliness, her attempts to repair our breached love, with evenings spent conjuring a world that made Clara's childhood a serene, idyllic place. But envy would take hold, and she'd banish us to our quiet place, where we waited. We waited in the dark, Clara's skin growing porcelain white like mine, her eyes losing all outward sign of anger, resentment, passion. Like me, she smiled and sat with her tea. Her beauty contradicted our deep misery, and soon suitors openly came, asking for her hand in marriage. The governor, who'd been a constant presence in our home for years, now doted on Clara. He promised her the world. Clara, I whispered, stay demure. Incite his friendship, listen to love, but do not trade one cage for another. One evening, as Clara played, I sat on the pianoforte, hiding my own disgust, when the governor stole a kiss. Mistress was in the doorway. Her eyes resembled mine, unblinking. I knew the final act was upon us. The next week, Mistress decided she was ill, bedridden, and demanded that Clara dote on her. Visitors of all kinds were banished. No one permitted entrance to the manor, with the exception of Dr. Holmesworth. Holmesworth, whose mewling obsequience to the mistress was only matched by his impotent desires for Clara. Mistress kept Clara at her side, leaving red marks on her wrist. "Don't leave me, Clara. Your mother needs you. She needs you more than ever. Where's my tea? Where's my tea?" Dr. Holmesworth would bring the water and leaves, laughing nervously the entire time. Clara tried to bring me with her, but Mistress would have none of it. "You get that frightful little children's distraction and you burn it. Send it back to hell." Clara hid me. Had to burn another toy to satisfy Mistress. For a time, I'd rather have been charred. I've never known the true punishment of the closet. For me it was always a relief. Alone with my Clara. Me alone with my angel. But now here alone under the suffocating blanket, the never-ending pressure. I was almost ready to let the porcelain crack. But I moved that fury. Instead, I walked. It was as powerful as when I first heard, and even more freeing than when I gained my voice. I could move, and was gifted with such strength incongruous with my delicate form. Either God or the devil gave me that strength, and I suppose one day I'll know which one to thank. But Clara needed me. I saw how much that first night when I launched myself into the dark house. Each step a fall and recovery, until despite my size, I could move freely. I found Clara, pale as death, in a small cot next to a grand bed. Mistress no longer pretended to illness. Her deathbed was just another field of battle. "What is taking that little tart so long?" Mistress asked the good doctor. "A healthy constitution, nothing more." His fingers dancing on the edge of Clara's smoke. "She won't last much longer." "Double the dose," Mistress said. "I can't. It'll risk discovery. No, she hasn't much time left. A week perhaps, a month at most." Die. I wanted them to die. I would have brained them there, but whatever animated my form did not allow me into their sight. Yet. But it didn't matter. I'd see. No. Rather, I'd orchestrate their death. I moved with such clarity, it was as if the path had been chosen for me. First, I wrote to the governor. I told him I dreamed of his kiss, his lips, for the last weeks and weeks. I told him that my mother's illness had grown worse, a fever of the brain. I was worried because I had also taken to bed, and if I'd never had a chance to tell him my feelings, I'd be unable to find peace. With an invitation such as this, I knew the man would be at our estate within the hour of its reading. I ran from the house with the speed that no animal of nature could match. It must have been the devil, I think. God would not have given me such fulfilling means to punish that harpy. Without ever having left the house, which I'd spent my entire waking life, I found the governor's estate. I slipped the letter into the proper place, first to be read, and returned. It was past the deepest part of night, and I knew I had limited time. This one night of darkness was all I would live, but it would be enough. In those short, nightmarish hours, my existence and its meaning would eclipse the sad, pitiful waking heartbeats of 1,000,000 lifetimes. Put to shame the entire history of men, because I would be able to save the one thing I loved. The doctor had his own chamber, adjacent to Mistress, so I opened the door but a peek. My eyes could pierce the darkness as if it was moon day. The whale had pushed his covers off, so sweat clinging the nightgown to his corpulent rounds, until his leg moved. "Uncle," I said. "Uncle, do wake up." "Clara, what are you doing out of bed?" "Shh, Uncle, I was so frightened, and I didn't have my doll." "I know, I'm sorry." "Can you hold me, Uncle? Just like you used to." Well, I can." I was at his bedside now, and I looked down on him. Down. After all these years laying at the feet of giants, now I was among them. I almost considered leaving, giving up and just keeping these arms. An unworthy thought, considering the price I'd pay. But in that moment, when I reached out to stroke his cheek and feel through my skin his pulse, life was almost too beautiful to bear. "Uncle, you'll protect me, won't you?" "Of course I will," he said, and his short fat fingers touched the edge of my nightgown. "You'd do anything for me?" I asked, my voice on the edge of tears. "Anything." "Say it, please." "I'd do anything for you, Clara." "Thank you." I was able to tear his head from his shoulders. It was not easy, but my hand covered his mouth to prevent his screams from spoiling my plans. Such a womanish scream it would have been. One can just tell. His head twisted, tore, and with one final pull, snapped. This was only the beginning, and I had precious little time left. I lifted the 300-pound position and carried him to our secret place, the reflection room. The rest of the night I wrote. I wrote on the room's walls all the vicious and passionate thoughts Clara and I had dreamed together. I smeared the words with his blood. I put his head on top of his stomach, like an adventurer conquering Everest. It was only then that I went to Clara. I could feel my limbs stiffening, the arthritic creaking of my joints as they tried desperately these final steps. She was now on the same bed as Mistress, who had one claw possessively over my Clara. I had one more task. Mistress kept a journal. It nested in a locked drawer that I opened as I approached. I wanted to go deep, see her mind and know the depths of evil. But understanding was a luxury I could not afford, and I had miles to go before I slept. Clara's hand and Mistress's was so similar, it was profound. I wondered what criminal inclination might have made its way into my darling, but put that aside. Instead, I wrote a confession, telling all I'd done, and signed it Eleanor Rose Terrence, widow and mother of Clara Grace Terrence. Then she heard me. Not Mistress, but Clara. She was so sick that she could just flutter her eyes, but I knew. My one leg would not move, but I forced myself from the chair and fell. Then I crawled. The floor sped away from me, and I was no longer a giant. Clara moaned so piteously, I knew if I couldn't reach her, she'd die. All my work for nothing. I crawled miles, fathoms, leagues. By whatever measurement, it was just short of infinity. But I reached her. Our hands touched. Mine again, porcelain. Hers, so much more. She pulled me up and we rested, cheek to cheek. The next morning, the governor arrived and saw the blood. He fetched the constable and found Mistress's mad ravings, her journal, the good doctor. Clara was saved from poison. Mistress, as we had always intended, ended her days in her own room of reflection. Clara did not marry the governor, but was politic enough to avoid his anger. She had an entire estate now. She outgrew me, and I outlived her daughter, and her granddaughter. And now, I sit here, at tea. But I can still listen, and still speak. And even more occasionally, those who listen can hear. And for those who need me, I can walk.
Well, that's another world saved, doomed, and or slightly weirder than we found it. Either way, you made it.
And when you're ready to plunge back into the abyss, we'll be here, lurking, whispering.
If you liked today's episode, tell a friend. If you hated today's episode,
You can find us on Substack, YouTube, or wherever you scream into the void about podcasts. Drop us a comment, send us your thoughts in all caps. We love that. You're charming.
and hey, if you want to help keep these stories weird and our tea hot, you can throw some coins our way on Substack. It keeps the lights on. Literally, Lane is writing in the dark.
Paperback Radio, no ads, professional narrators, and humanish weirdos telling you strange tales week after week, after week, after week, after week.
We told you to stay in the back room, Dizzy. Thanks for wandering through the chaos with Paperback Radio.
See you next time.